It is the Final Word Daily. Adam Collins and Geoff Lemon after the second day of the Nottingham Test match between England and India. Geoff, tell us all about it, please, in 30 seconds.
Well, 1 second for each over. We got 33 overs in today with rain and bad light around. Still enough time for the momentum to shift. England were getting really worried when India's opening partnership got to 97. They were burning reviews left, right and centre, and then the wickets started to tumble. Rohit Sharma hooking to fine leg. How many times have we seen it? Anderson gets on a roll. Pujara and Kohli gone quickly. Rahane runs himself out, and suddenly it's 4 for 125. Rishabh and King legend Rahul batting really nicely. We'll need to rebuild tomorrow.
Nicely summed up. So 58 runs in arrears, India, 125 for 4 when the latest of about 6 rain delays got them in the end. You're right, England, it was drifting, wasn't it? At one stage, 97 without loss, nearing lunch, you're thinking, well, 100 for none at lunch. This is going to be a monster day for India, obviously notwithstanding the bad weather that was around, but they barely deploy the short ball. Then Robinson bowls one. A delivery before Rohit Sharma's nearly running himself out, and he pops it straight down Sam Curran's throat. I mean, it's bad game management, I suppose, after doing such a lot of good work alongside KL Rahul and laying that foundation. That's what gave England the sniff, and they take 4 for 15 either side of lunch. A thrilling passage of play that included 2 in 2 balls from James Anderson, Kohli a golden duck, and it was kind of all happening. It's a real shame the rain and bad light intervened when it did, because it was set up beautifully.
Well, it was set up to be. It could have been one of those great Rishabh Pant counter-attacking moments, or he might have got himself out. But Rohit Sharma, we saw him do this at least twice off the top of my head, maybe 3 times in the Australian series, the 4 tests they played there, where he'd be out there building a good opening partnership with Shubman Gill, maybe move to a half century, maybe be 30 or 40, and then play the hook shot airborne to exactly the same spot on the ground. It's almost a compulsion rather than a decision, and it seems like the number of times when you've made the same mistake that many times, something is going on that you need to address as a player. Like, surely you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again.
And then after lunch, once that happens, well, James Anderson's a different bowler, isn't he? I mean, before lunch, and really last night too, he did not make them play enough. And for a bowler that put so much work into what he did between the New Zealand series and now, all that extra training that we were talking about on the weekly show a couple of weeks ago, the work he did at county level, the 7-wicket bag up there at Old Trafford, and you just kind of got the feeling that he would have gone to bed last night pretty annoyed with himself, and it started much the same today. But after lunch, different bowler, back to his best. That ball to Pujara was a beauty. He had to play at it, little feather through to Butler, who did well low, and the next ball to Kohli is the quintessential James Anderson wicket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was all about like that little bit of in-swing that makes Kohli start to come forward to it and think he has to play. He knows that Kohli, especially even in his first 4 or 5 balls, tends to go a little bit harder at the ball than he will later in an innings. But the in-swing means that he has to come forward to play, and he just pushes at it a bit too hard, and it seems away a little bit, and maybe he followed it just a touch, but just enough, and through it went.
Yeah, and to think that, I mean, that Anderson-Kohli duel in the last 2 series in this country where the teams have played, 2014, Anderson all over him. And in some respects he was as well in 2018. It's just the fact that Kohli had the presence of mind and the discipline to never really go after Anderson, and thus he never got out to him. The two were the best 2 players on either side through the series, really. In an occasion where England won 4-1, but Kohli was the dominant player in terms of batting, at least, between the 2 teams. So coming here, they go at it for a 3rd time, and first ball, I mean, it was absolutely firing up at Trent Bridge. The noise was outstanding.
And I do wonder, I remember in that second series where Kohli made all the runs, I remember him being dropped very early on in the first time he got 100 against Anderson. He was put down in the cordon early, and you wonder whether things might have been different had that been different. The catch was held today. Another catch wasn't held. Dom Sibley put another one down. That England cordon has all kinds of problems. I saw a stat that Sibley's something like he's held 9 and dropped 7 in his time in the cordon. That's a team that's got all sorts of issues going around. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. There's a funny thing with Kohli, that there's a certain subset of Indian cricket supporters, I suppose you could call them, who bloody hate him. Like, they will have any opportunity to have a go at him. You see them in the comments on our videos sometimes, and I'm sure that there's obviously a huge amount of support and love, but there's also a pretty decent contingent of people who will take any chance to run the guy down despite all of the things that he's achieved. So I'm sure he'll be getting a serve after getting a golden duck, as though no player's ever done that before.
Yeah, and I'm sure he'll bounce back. Probably the player that requires the most criticism, though, is the Ajinkya Rahane. He had a bloody death wish out there. He nearly got run out a couple of balls before, I think it was, and then it was a calamitous run out, because what was he thinking? I mean, it's not even really his call to begin with. Pushed into the offside, galloping down the track. There's never a single there at the best of times, let alone to Johnny Bairstow herring in from just behind point. The direct hit was on from the moment that Bairstow picked it up cleanly, had time to set and throw, and that's the fourth wicket to fall in the space of about 8 overs, and really put the cherry on top. Or the cherry on top would have been the catch by Sibley, but nevertheless it meant that Rahane, who was an image of cool and calm in Australia earlier in the year, starts the series with a disappointing dismissal.
Yeah, it's a weird one, that stat that was being noted where he'd got through a couple of hundred innings previously in his career without ever being involved in a run out, and then he's been involved in 4 in his last 30 odd hits.
It's like even better than that. I think it's he had the longest run in the history of Test cricket without being run out for anybody at the start of a career, and I think it's now 4 in 21 Tests. I mean, it's a remarkable series of stats, or a series of numbers rather, to look at that Andrew Sampson compiled. Because I mean, as I say, like, this is one cool customer. We've seen that at home and away over a long period of time. It seems so out of step with his personality and ease at the crease.
It's just midlife crisis batting. He's like a guy who's never had a speeding ticket, and then at about 48, he's suddenly bought his first red sports car and can't help putting the foot down. Like, he just wants to hair off for a T20 single every time somebody knocks the ball off the cut strip. So probably needs to sort that one out. Maybe it was just a bit too pumped up, a bit too adrenaline fueled. First innings, first test. They've been waiting a long time to get out there, and I think you probably can forgive a few mistakes on both sides.
I think my player of the day is Ollie Robinson. He was comfortably the pick of the bowlers before lunch, and creating that error just before that interval, which got things going. He's asked the best questions, put it that way, moving the ball back off the seam from that height. And you know what? He's up in the mid-80s in terms of miles per hour now, which I don't think a year ago when we thought of Ollie Robinson. Yeah, granted, at county level you don't have the speed gun, but I think we kind of thought he might be a 78 to 81 kind of guy, when actually he might be a mid-80s guy who also is tall. And look, that terrible news that came through today that Jofra Archer won't play at all for the rest of 2021, which captures this series, the T20 World Cup and the Ashes series in Australia. So he's going to have a whole year of cricket wiped out. They need a solution for much of that cricket this series, and then I suppose the Test series in Australia. And sure, Robinson isn't Jofra Archer, but he's playing a very important role and has a lot of good tricks.
It really hurts, that news, doesn't it? Like, I'm sure he's gutted. For everybody who loves the game, as soon as we saw what he could do in the 2019 Ashes in Test cricket, all of our thoughts immediately went to, what could this guy look like bowling in Perth? What might he look like bowling in Brisbane? This could be the thing that makes an England tour down under absolutely must-watch viewing. There's a bevy of other fast bowlers coming through in England who, hopefully some of them will be fit and some of that spectacle will still be there. But yeah, it's desperately sad that we'll have to wait another 4 years before we can even have the chance of maybe Jofra being fit and ready to come down under.
Unless they delay the Ashes by a year. I saw the Rugby League World Cup's been postponed. I'm not saying that Archer's omission should be the catalyst for it, but I did see further advice from the Australian government overnight. It's getting harder and harder to get into that country, and indeed getting out of that country, so it might provide pause for thought. Anyway, Jeff, we're going to take a break. We're going to learn about cricket bats for about 12 and a half seconds, and then we'll be back with our Final Word Hall of Fame.
Woodstock Cricket, home of the finest handmade cricket bats and soft goods. Visit either our showroom or workshop and experience the magic for yourselves. For bookings, contact info@woodstockcricket.co.uk.
Final Word Daily, Adam Collins, Geoff Lemon, Hall of Fame nominations. You could see, Jeff, that the Indian players didn't mind at all getting off the park as soon as there was a drop of rain. And to do that, you need to show technique. And what I loved about Rishabh Pant, even though it was only drizzling at the stage that they pulled him off, I think the third time, he tucked his bat underneath his jumper to give the impression that the rain was a lot heavier than it actually was there at the ground at Nottingham. I appreciated that.
I've never seen a player protect the bat before. Like, I don't know if this is a thing that gets done, but I've never seen a player so precious about their bat that they couldn't get a drop of water on it. It was hysterical. The only thing I could think, like, the image I had was just that he was trying to shoplift a really expensive bat from a sports store, and he thought this was going to be a really subtle way of getting it out past the scanners at the front. But Rishabh, I think he got rumbled on that one. I think my Hall of Fame is that Jimmy Anderson hasn't finished his over yet. He'd be my player of the day, by the way. But he's bowled an over. It will have taken 4 attempts, because he bowled one delivery, had a rain delay, came back, bowled one more delivery, had a rain delay, came back, bowled 2 more deliveries, had a rain delay, and has to come back tomorrow to finish the over, maybe on the 4th attempt. He's got 2 balls left. There might be time for another rain delay between balls 5 and 6.
Well, funny you say that. The weather forecast is not good for tomorrow. In fact, I don't want to say it, but whisper it. It could be the kind of day that gets rained off entirely. Now, if that were to be the case, James Anderson could have 4 attempts across 3 days to complete that over, and then that would be one for the statisticians to work out whether that's ever happened in Test cricket before. The kind of stuff we love here on The Final Word. We also love all the great feedback we had on the show last night, bringing back the dailies as we are for the duration of this series. So thanks for your comments on YouTube below. That's really kind of you. We're looking forward to making this series throughout. Thanks to our team, both in London and Melbourne, for putting it on as well. Jeff, thank you to you for staying up to some ungodly hour in Australia to record this too. That'll be it for us tonight. Final Word Daily. Adam and Jeff will talk to you again tomorrow, hopefully without any rain.
Later.